Okay, the main reason for doing this was we've all got the radios, but Bluey, as Region 4 Commander, really wanted to spell out not necessarily how he wants us to use the radios, but more particularly how not to use them. And so that's what tonight's all about. Michael has graciously offered and done a very good job of putting together a very comprehensive book, which is your reference. So if I omit anything, please refer to the book. It's all in there, everything we need to know. Now, there's a lesson that I'll bring up straight away. On Monday night, when I went to do the same thing over at the hall, I grabbed my radio because people were asking some of the finer points of using them. I turned it on, and guess what? It was dead. No, battery was fine. It was dead as a dodo. Absolutely useless. So the message there is, do check your radio from time to time, and we'll talk more about that later. But the other thing that we think caused it was probably a stray lightning potential on the aerial. The front end of my radio was all dead, it had all been fritzed. And remember, we had a good old lightning strike which took our power out a couple of weeks ago. We suspect that that's the case. Now, my radio's gone off to Sydney to see if they'll replace it under warranty. But the message is, if there's your home and there's potential for lightning, just take the aerial off and put the little rubber ducky aerial on instead. Because obviously you've got that pole up on the roof feeding down into the radio. They're very, very sensitive in what feeds in, and all they need is just a bit of a voltage gradient in the air from a lightning strike, and that could be all over Rover, like it apparently was with mine. So let that be a lesson. We do need to probably look after them a bit more than we've been used to. Okay, now the main thing is that we need to know channel 9, 09 is the number that the emergency services in our area use, not for their official government radio communications, but particularly between farm fire units and CFS units. SES will occasionally be on channel 9 too, probably not so much, but in case of a fire where you've got swarms of farm utes with their pump and tank on the back, channel 9 is the frequency that's used for them to communicate back to the fire trucks. The fire trucks have got their government radio in, so they're doing all the official communications, but the whole reason why we got these is so we can listen to channel 9. Now, the word is listen. In case of emergency, it is not a call for help radio. We've got to make that quite clear. In case of emergency, if you really do need assistance, you're in 000 like you do for any other sort of assistance. But it's not the sort of radio you get on channel 9 and say, oh, help, the fire's coming, because you won't be very popular. You might be actually precluding an important radio call somewhere else. Because that brings us to the next part about them. Just to remind you, they don't work like a telephone. You can't pick them up and yabber back and forth on them. They're what's called simplex, which simply means they can either transmit or they can receive, but not both at the same time. That's why you've got a press to talk button on the side. And so the protocol is that if you need to transmit, and we'll go through how in a minute, is that you need to press the button, wait a second or so, and then start talking. It's too easy to start talking and then press the button, which means that whoever's listening on the other end won't get the first few syllables or words. So it's, and particularly if you're using some of the government radios, it can take several seconds to actually get that connection. So get into the habit of pressing the button, then talking after a second or two. As soon as you finish talking, remember to let go. Because if you keep holding the button, you're not going to receive any answers because you're still going to be sending out a signal. So that's a very important part that people who are not familiar with radio use, and we're going to suggest a regime so we can get a bit of practice doing that. So that's the other thing. We are going, I'm jumping around a bit, but we need to discuss all this. We're proposing that we actually use channel 59 as a Beetaloo Valley communication channel. So that If we do want to talk to somebody in an emergency, or just because you want to have a yap to them, we'll use channel 59. Now remember, Citizens Band Radio doesn't mean we've got exclusive use of channel 59, far from it. It is open to anybody to use any channel. There are some channels which obviously are considered reserved for emergency channels. There are duplex or repeater channels which we don't need to know about, but 59 is going to be a Beetaloo general chat channel. The reason we've picked that is most of the channels up to 40 under the old scheme, farmers have for decades used their own favourite channel, and they'll probably keep using that same channel. With the advent of 80 channels coming in a couple of years back, it means we've now got the extra 40, and so we're actually going to, and the bit of listening I've done, there's nothing happening on 59 around here anyway, so that will be our frequency. So the procedure is, if you really do need to call somebody else, now remember there's no guarantee that they're going to be there listening to their radio. They might be outside, they might be doing anything. The procedure is, if we need to call somebody in an emergency, like during a fire, provided there is no other traffic on channel 9, and you do need to listen, and there is a reasonably long break, it's okay to use it as a call channel. First, Stewie, are you on channel? Yeah, he writes, go to 59. And you both go tick, 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 tick on your up button till you get to 59, then you start again. But you really do need to, if there is an emergency on, either avoid using channel 9 or use it only as a call channel. That was Bluey's biggest fear, was that people would see it as oh, let's have a yap, because everybody else is there, let's have a yap. But no, it's really intended as an information gathering channel. But if you need to, by all means, do a call on channel 9, but then say go to 59. And that way we all know that that's the channel that we're going to go to. As far as looking after your radio, do remember, and it's all written up in here, that you do need to make sure it's charged, and particularly your spare battery as well. Remember, you all got a spare battery. It doesn't have to be in the radio. You can actually stick your spare battery in the charger while you're wandering around outside with your radio with a rubber ducky aerial. It fits in the cradle just the same, charges just the same. Because if there's no power, and we all know that that can happen, particularly in a fire, you are going to be relying on the two batteries being charged. And it'll work quite a while. For all we need to know, go for a couple of days on those two, unless you're going to talk non-stop. But there is a bit of maintenance, a bit of you looking after your radios. Now, the original booklet that came out, and also you've got your full instructions here that came with the radio. So it's a matter of making sure that, particularly during the fire season, that it's ready. Now what we're proposing, I was hoping that Ian Sutcliffe would be here tonight, but I don't know whether they're home or not, that Ian he lives in the house right up by the reservoir, right up on the hill, for those who don't know. Ian is an amateur radio operator. He's right up with radio stuff, and he spends quite a bit of time talking all over the place. I'm going to ask Ian if he would mind organising maybe once a month check where he'll will get on air and maybe talk to each other. I'd like to find out whether Ian can actually talk to everybody down the valley from his high point, because it's highly likely that, for example, I couldn't talk through to Bluey because of he's down in a valley, I'm down in a valley. Remember, UHF radio is basically line of sight. Close in it might work a bit better than that, but basically it's line of sight. So we do really need to do that, and the proposal is that might be the first Sunday of the month or something at a given time, we all make sure our radio's on, and that way you're going to know that somebody can talk to you, that you can talk to them. Because I would have been caught out. As I said, Monday, picked it up, radio's dead. First I knew about it. So that's the other side, that we really do need to make sure that we keep the radios going. There's a whole lot of other information Mike's put in, which is the standard sort of CFS, what happens if you're in a fire sort of information. and that's to remind you that having a radio is certainly not going to be the be-all and end-all of surviving or saving your life. You do need to be prepared. You do need to have a plan to do it. And there's a whole lot about what to do. Now, that's standard sort of CFS practice. I hope you've all got a fire plan. We certainly had to put ours into action a few times a couple of years ago, and that reminded us that it was all about. So the interesting thing though is, while I think about it, there's some information in the back of the booklet how to reset your radio to a default setting. Now, these radios, they are a computer, don't get me wrong, they are computerised. And like computers, they will do about 10 times more than what we want them to do. They are quite sophisticated. You can set up all sorts of things, and if you and a neighbour want to play with all the information in the booklet, feel free. But we really only want to be able to use them, know how to use them basically. If you get yourself in a mess and find that it's not working like you would, you need to press and hold the menu button, and that will take you back through these screens. Michael's put together an information session there in the back, how to reset it. Now, if you're only going to use channel 9, you're going to use the up and down buttons to go from 9 to 59. You won't need to know anything about that. But if you really want to start exploring a lot of the more detailed capabilities, it's quite easy to get yourself to a point where you think, well, where was I? Just like it is with computers. So my suggestion would be, unless you really want to know what you're doing, just use them for channel 9 and 59, because that's the safest part. We're not going to get caught out then. So that was really the main information. As I said, it was the CFS who really wanted to get this information out. And through all sorts of circumstances, they haven't been able to be here. We've had 1, 2, 3 people lined up to do it, and all for various reasons. They thought, well, 4 with Bluey, they had to pull out. So, and when Bluey said, oh, look, the season's not going to start for a while, put it off for a few weeks, I thought, yeah, it'll be next year before we got anywhere. So I just said, hey, bring it on, I'll do it. So I think, Michael, that covers pretty well everything.
Yeah, it does, yeah. Pretty much
what have I left out?
I don't think you left anything out.
Thank you, that's good.
Right.
So, throw it open. Suggestions, comments, questions?
John, just like the process of talking on a radio, where you talk across the speaker rather than into the speaker. So when
or the microphone.
The microphone, yeah.
Good point. If you're sort of there and right up in front of you, it will be distorted. They're quite sensitive, and generally, like just about any radio, you basically talk across it rather than at it, and you'll get much clearer speech. And the other thing is that, remember too, that if you have a low, quiet voice, it might not be heard above the background noise. Or conversely, if you mumble a lot, you do really need to speak clearly, because you can hear people on a radio and it's just what? So you need to speak reasonably clear, but don't yell, just normal voice, even if you just held it. Most of you are used to a mobile phone, where you know that you can have your mobile phone out here and it'll transmit everything that you've got. So they're basically the same sort of setup. So, but good point, Stuart.
You need to say over when you finish.
What do you reckon, Michael?
Well, it'd be a personal touch, I think. If you wanted to say over, that's quite okay, that's no problem.
Yeah.
If you feel comfortable saying that, it's great. Otherwise, we just use normal conversations. You just got to remember though, it's only one conversation at any one time. It's not a duplex arrangement where you're talking, I'm talking at the same time. You've got to train yourself to say what you're going to say, and then when you finish, you can either say over or don't say anything. But the person on the other end usually knows that you've finished the conversation, like I've done now.
Yeah, I think that it's when it gets really busy, or you're talking to someone who's right on the edge of transmission and it's all a bit crackly, the over sort of frames the conversation a bit.
People are going to be in a panic mode too, which doesn't help, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You've just got to try and take a deep breath and stay calm. But yes, if you want to say over on the end of a conversation, great. But whatever suits you.
It does define the end of what you're saying.
Yeah.
In other words, over to you, your turn.
Yes.
The other thing too is do make sure that you do listen for quite some seconds before you start to talk, because even if there might be a faint signal that you're receiving, if you talk over it, it's going to cause distortion. You're not going to get the message through. So you really make sure that nobody else is using that frequency, whatever it may be, before you start talking. And that's it. FM's not quite so bad, but AM's awful. Using VHF AM like I do for airband radio, if you get two talking, you just get a squeal. Though they heterodyne together, and it's just a nonsense. So it's important that you make sure that, and of course, if everybody abides by the same rules, as soon as you start talking, anybody else that's trying to use the radio will wait till you've finished too. So just common sense on that.
So would you recommend that, say at the start of the fire season, we just have them on channel 59 or whatever all the time? Is there or just
well,
not
if we're going to use 59 as a Beetaloo chat frequency, by all means, just means that, remember, anybody else that wants to use 59, whether it's intended for you to listen or not, you're going to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
It is public. So you've got to remember that anything you say on a UHF CB is public property. Anybody can listen.
But just so that we're all, at least during fire season, there is a trigger that makes us at least remember.
Well, I think during a fire, I think everybody would be
on 9.
On 9.
Yes.
It's only if two of you would like to go off and talk about something else important. That's when you call each other on channel 9. When the station is clear and we say when it's quiet, like 10 or 15 seconds of the country fire service people not actually talking to the utilities and so forth, when there's a bit of quietness there, that's when you would call the other person and then you would acknowledge that, and then both of you then would go to channel 59. If somebody else was listening on channel 59 heard that, you would, wonder what they're talking about. Yep, sure, everybody can go to channel 59, it doesn't matter. But the end of the story is that everybody should be listening on channel 59 because that's what's happening now.
Yeah, channel 9, yeah.
So what happens if 3 or 4 people start talking at once?
Becomes awkward. It's where
none of you will be
Ian Sutcliffe hopefully will train everybody in that respect when they do a radio check, whether it be a once a month thing. You'll get a hands-on on how to use the radio, when to say and when not to say. Like you say, everybody will jump on, and then hopefully someone like Ian will say, no, hang on, we need one person at a time. So it comes down to training and usage. And then once it actually does happen, you'll find, yep, I understand, it'll work great.
Remember that channel 9 is only used when there's an emergency on. It's not like the CFS trucks and the farmers have all got channel 9 running all the time. It's basically, if there's an emergency, everybody will go to channel 9 because they'll be using other channels in between. And there's nothing to stop you if you want to set up something to talk to a neighbour or a friend, use any other channel you can find that's free. It's just that we, for the sake of uniformity, would like to make 59 as the Beetaloo Valley channel, so that we've got some commonality, because when there's 80 channels it's a bit hit and miss that anybody's going to be listening, and we don't really want to get into scanning. It's got more whiskers on it than it's worth. Just if you see and you read your book and it's all about scanning, you can set your radio up to continuously scan a list of channels or the whole bang lot, but the catch is it means that any time it receives a signal on any frequency, it'll latch onto that and you'll hear it, which can be a pain in the butt. So my experience with that is probably, unless you really want to listen to what's going on in the world, I wouldn't bother with it. Drive you nuts.
In a multi-day event like last time, might be an idea to have a time for a sked where someone gives the updates, because Stewie drove round to everyone's house last time and spoke to them. We had a sked. Stewie could disseminate information.
And that's why I'm hoping that from Ian's place we might be able to actually get to everybody. Because of his high point, he's got more chance of being able to talk to everybody in the valley than anywhere else. So that's what we do, and I'll talk to Ian about that and see if we can and let you know. That's why it's important that we got an updated email address. Because when I went to get out the information about this week, I found quite a lot had changed email addresses, and we had emails bouncing back, and I think, oh, okay, because people do change addresses.
So through the when we get to the training and Ian does his thing, so that'll be, because it will be line of sight, so we'll need to work out which neighbours can talk to which neighbours. Is that
we'll have to find out by experiment, and that might be up to you basically. When we if we set up just a time where we're all on together, we can then basically run through and say, I can call Anita and say, are you able to hear me? And if I don't get an answer, I'll know. But we do need to make sure we're all on at the same time. And that will be up to, I'm hoping I can get Ian to take it on board, because I'm not in a good position to run it from here, because we're down low and not likely to get a signal out to everybody.
So direct line of sight, what's the drop-off, like, roughly? 10?
No. Direct line of sight will go 10k. Yeah.
Well, actually, look, that radio has the capacity of talking from here to Adelaide.
Oh, really?
With the correct antenna.
Yeah.
It's a 5 watt unit.
Yeah.
You can actually talk to Adelaide from here on 1 watt. So, on average, we like to say with that antenna, about a 10 kilometre radius.
Yeah.
That's on flat, open ground.
Yeah.
You throw a few hills in there, maybe 1 or 2 k's.
All bets are off.
So if you put onto a base aerial like we have now, that's going to increase that probability.
Okay. Yeah, I've got that.
And the other good point about that is, if you go outside and just use your portable aerial, you're not going to have the range that you'll get from your base aerial on the roof.
Correct.
Right. It's not as efficient as an aerial, and it's down lower. So that's just something you need to be aware of, that it won't work as well on its little portable aerial.
Yeah, so if I'm outside going down the hill with the portable one, I'll only be able to talk back to the house.
No, you'll probably get to anybody else within. It'll go over hills at short range, like up to a kilometre or two. You might be surprised just how well it will in fact go over a hill. But you might just find that it's just got a dead spot, just like mobile phones. You might have to stand on the right spot. So that's why you need to play around, have a play with it. And that was the whole idea for the aerial on the roof, was to maximise the reception.
During the testing procedure once a month, we might even pay you to unscrew the base antenna and screw on the rubber ducky antenna and go outside and have a little bit of a listen and to see whether or not you can hear those conversations. Will gauge you then as to whether or not you are going to get that far with the portable antenna.
You know that timer we got given?
Yes.
That, our little thingy-bob, the cradle, fits into that, doesn't it?
The radio fits into the
where you charge
cradle,
it,
and the charger plugs into the timer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Just so I know.
Yes, that's correct. During a fire, it is recommended to unplug it, the charger, from the timer and plug it straight into a power point. So that, because you can listen constantly.
Right.
The only reason for the timer was, if you just leave it on charge 24/7 weeks at a time, the batteries may not like it. And that was the whole idea, really.
And when you came, excuse me, John, when you came and installed it all, you set that timer up.
Yes, I did. Yes, it is in the book there.
Remember, you've got a battery indicator on the top left of the screen. That's your indicator. If it says it's full, don't worry about charging it. And the whole idea was just so that when you turn it on, it'll show you, all the black dots will say, that's a charged battery. That's the whole idea of it, and the timer should keep that going.
Well, John, I was wondering about, considering the frequency with which our phones go out, whether they might be useful to sort of establish some other protocol around channel 59, just for those times, because we lose our phone about, I don't know.
We can't run.
Yeah, different ball game. Obviously, you're not going to be able to make phone calls out using the radio.
No, but it's just that, it's handy if, the phone's out, 59.
Yeah, well, good, particularly in an emergency, yeah, definitely, yeah. Because given that, like where we are, mobile phones don't work here either, so, if our landline goes out, that's it, that is our emergency phone, is our landline.
Well, that's what happened to us the other week. No, anything.
Yeah, likewise. So good point, if you haven't got a phone, well, yeah, listen to 59.
I'm definitely on 59 because I've got no landline and the mobile phone.
Yeah.
It's busy, copy your own landline off.
Yeah. These are all the things we just have to work out.
Yes. If you want to sit on 59, that's great.
Yeah, and use it as a.
If you know there's a fire in the area, well, you might want to switch or listen or go back to Channel 9 just to see if it's anything happening or developing. Yeah, by all means.
So for example, there was a pile of smoke yesterday.
Yes.
Down that way.
Yes.
So you turn on to Channel 9 and you pretty quickly pick up if it was an incident.
Well,
or just
no, not necessarily pretty quickly, because it depends. I mean, if the CFS have already dispatched vehicles in that area, you're not actually going to switch it on and instantly get communication or hear communication between those vehicles as such.
But
those communications may have already been and gone. Not to say that they're finished, it just means that they're on their way and nothing has been said until they actually get there to assess the fire. So one needs to switch it on Channel 9 and maybe leave it on there for a little bit longer than just on for a moment, and you'll instantly know.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember Channel 9 is only going to become active when there is a major event where all the farm units are coming in. It's not used by the CFS just routinely. They've got their own government radio network. So if the CFS get called out to check out the smoke down the road, and it turns out all they do is squirt a bit of water on whatever's burning, Channel 9's not going to be active at all.
They'll be on their government.
They'll be on the government radio.
That is, as soon as anything's dispatched, it's on the CFS website. So you can just go onto the CFS website.
Yes, that's the other point. No power, with satellite, no website. And no mobile phone, no website. So yeah.
So you use Channel 59 or use Channel 9 and call somebody up that you know in your group maybe and just ask them if there's anything going on.
We do have to explore it a bit and just find out, just how far we can work with them and how we can use them to advantage.